Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Montana and I was an exchange student in Germany, but now I study German as my major at the University of Virginia as well as business. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about some of the most common mistakes that I heard Germans making when speaking English. You might notice I have a different background. I'm currently staying in Charlottesville for the weekend, so I'm not at home where I normally film, but I'm pretty sure this is a good setup nonetheless. I want to come off at the beginning and say that some of these might not be something that you're able to change. Everybody, when you're speaking a different language, it's very hard to get the perfect accent and to sound like a native. I don't think I will ever sound like a German native, and so none of these are poking fun at Germans. I just think that they are helpful tips, because if you are trying to sound more like a native English speaker, some of these things could help you. Just a little bit of background: I lived in Passau in Bavaria, and I attended a gymnasium in grade 11. I was in an 11th grade English class and then all of the normal German classes. But I have some notes down of just common mistakes. So the first one that I have is a lot of times I would hear people saying one can, because in German you say man kann das machen, oder wenn man, and you use the word man, which means like one. But in English, we don't really use the term one can do this or one should in reference to a person. Instead, we would just say you should do this or you could go there. And using one can is just very formal. Maybe you would use that in papers, but not necessarily in common conversations. Another one that I have that I thought was funny is a lot of Germans confuse the words chef and boss. Because in German, chef means boss. In English, chef means cook. And so I remember my host family and I got into this big conversation, and they were talking about their friend who was a head boss at Aldi or Lidl, and the whole time they kept saying chef, and I was like, oh, like he's the cook for Lidl, like that's pretty cool. But the whole time they meant that he was like a boss or a CEO. So try to remember that the word chef in German means boss in English. Germans tend to use the gerund more often than it's needed, and the gerund is when a word ends in ing. So they'll say something like it is working or it will be working. This is basically because in German there's no difference between saying she is running and she runs. So then when you're learning English, it's kind of hard to determine when do I use the ing versus not that. Obviously, I'm not an English major because I don't know all those fancy terms, but when in doubt, I would go for not the ing. So like in the future, if you're trying to say in the future, you could say it will work. The next one that I have is that Germans tend to add more syllables to words than are needed. I think this is because of the rhythm and the length, honestly, of German words. They are so long. You guys probably know that if you're speaking German. In English, we talk and we kind of slur our words a lot together. So some examples that I have for you guys is Catholics, like the religion. I've heard people say like Catholics. Unfortunately, they say unfortunately, or they just add too many syllables in them. And then oh, one for sure is beautiful. I think it would be like beautiful, and there's like that little emphasis in it that a lot of German speakers put. But if you want to try to get rid of that, just try to say your words really fast and just practice like reading them really fast and not using too many syllables. I think for me, the best way to kind of hear that sound and like speak more like a native is by watching Netflix shows or anything in German, just constantly listening to the language to try to pick up on how those words are often said. Next is the difference between persons and people. In English, the word persons can be grammatically correct, but almost always when you're speaking with someone and you want to reference like a group of people, so more than one person, you would say people instead of persons. Persons is a word, but we just don't use it a lot when we speak. So the next one is that the Z in English is a very hard Z. It's like zoo or Zimbabwe, or there aren't too many, zebra. So in German, the German speakers tend to pronounce it like an S, like su, or zebra, or more with an S instead of a hard Z. So that's one thing that definitely gives away if you're a German speaker. And I think that that's why so many people, when they're trying to do a fake German accent and it turns out so bad, but they just use like the zu. Another word that Germans oftentimes mix up is informations. They add the S because in German you could say like infos and you have the S at the end, but in English we just say information. The plural doesn't have an S. Another phrase that Germans commonly use that is not commonly used in English is in the near from. If you want to say something's nearby or close, you could say just near. It's near Berlin instead of saying it's in the near from Berlin. That's another translation thing, because in German you would say in the Nähe von, but in English we don't do that. Okay guys, this is going on to be a long video, but I have 3 more tips. The first one is another pronunciation one that really gives away whether or not you're an English speaker or a German speaker, and that is that hard R. This is because the German R is very difficult, in my opinion, and very, very different than the English R. So words like world, squirrel, referral, curl, these all give away whether or not you're an English speaker because you can hear the pronunciation of the R. So that's one thing that I would try to repeat and practice if you are aiming to sound more English. But that squirrel, I think that does sorry, I had to think in my head what British people sound like. If you're trying to learn British English, then their pronunciation of the R is different than American English, so maybe that's your goal. Honestly, British English sounds much nicer than American English, in my opinion. My second to last one is just a little tip. Do not use the word handy in the United States. I'm not sure if the meaning is the same in England or in the UK, but a handy does not mean a phone. You can look up what it means on Urban Dictionary or some slang website, but it is not the same meaning, and it's a very common word in Germany. I would say, oh, my handy, all the time, like I have my phone. But in the United States, we do not say that. Lastly is when you're talking about the gender of an animal. This one was such a funny story to me too, because I was showing my dog to someone and they were like, oh, is your dog a man or a woman? Which, if you're an English speaker, this is very funny because that's not how you would refer to a dog. We say for animal genders either male or female, but that's kind of formal. That's what you would write down on a vet form. So if you're taking your dog to the veterinarian, you would say male, like check male or female. If it's just a casual conversation and you want to know what gender the animal is, you would say, oh, is it a girl or a boy? Or you could say male or female. But do not say man or woman because that is only referencing like humans and people. For dogs and pets, that's probably when you would say boy or girl, because for some reason we give more attachment and like emotional attachment to those types of animals, and so we kind of think of them more as like living people, like boys and girls, versus bears or zebras or anything, or like animals in a zoo, you would probably say male or female. Those are all my tips. I know that was a lot. If you guys enjoy this style of video and think that any of these like tips are helpful, please let me know because I can come up with some more. And I love making videos like this. I hope that this advice kind of helps you. And I also wanted to say thank you a lot for all of the people who comment German grammar tips on my videos in German, and like all of the errors I made up. I read through all of those and really try to take note of them. They help a lot with improving my language skills, and I just think that learning new languages is so cool. So hopefully this video helps you and you enjoyed it. My condolences go out to everybody affected by the flooding currently in Germany. I'm so sorry. It's so sad to watch all of the news channels on that, and it makes me really, really sad to see how much destruction the water has caused. So if you are impacted by that or you know anyone impacted, I hope for the best in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching again. Bleib gesund und tschüss!